Hey everyone, today we're going to be starting the text-based tutorial series for GameMaker Studio 2. But before we do that, if you haven't already installed GameMaker Studio 2, you're going to need to do that. You can get a free version, but it doesn't really let you do everything, and you can follow this tutorial series by using the free version, but it won't be perfect. You can buy the desktop edition for $100. Now what the desktop edition will let you do is you can actually create your game and have an actual executable file for it, which you can put online, and then you can sell or do whatever you want with your game. The trial version only lets you test. So yeah, the desktop version is $100. But if you had GameMaker Studio, the original one, you can upgrade for only $60. So yes, this is, I'd say, a good enough deal to do it. And I'd say it's actually worth it all on its own. And one other thing. So in the description you'll be able to find a link, but the files for my game are hosted on GameJolt.com. We're going to be integrating our game into GameJolt.com a lot. It's a very, very great site, and it's a great place for indie developers to really start out. I mean, that's what this tutorial is about. I mean, anyone can watch it that wants to, but it's mostly going to be tailored towards people that really want to start making games and think that GameMaker Studio 2 is a great place to begin, which it really is probably the best place to begin for a beginner. So, GameMaker Studio has loaded for you, and so this is the start page. We're going to be dealing with this quite a bit. So, I already have two projects here, but we're going to want to create a new project. So we can just press new, and we're going to be wanting to use the GameMaker language because, well, programming is very useful. It'll ask you for a spot to save your game. I would recommend creating a game projects folder, because with a folder you can put all future game projects in one spot. And then I'd recommend making a new folder and naming it something like, I'm just gonna do something generic, text-based game, because for now that's all this is. We don't really have any sort of plan yet. We have the folder, and then we need to name the actual file, text-based game. Okay, so here we go, we've loaded it up. We have an empty workspace here, which means here is where we're going to put our new objects, our new sprites, our new everything, and we'll edit them in this area. It's like a workspace or a desktop or something you use to, well, manage everything. So we're here. What do we do now? Well, first of all, you'll need to keep this in mind. This, well, collapses and expands dock panels, as it says. What that means is that, well, these two things are coming in and coming out. These are where our resources are. We have, I'll go through this. We have sprites, which are obviously the images that you use for your game. Then we have the tile sets. These are things you can place in your world, and they don't really use up that much code, but they're kind of limited on how you can use them. We'll get more in depth into these things in the future. Then there are sounds. Obviously, you just store your sounds here, and you can use them in your game. Paths, these aren't really something we'll get into, definitely not in the text-based tutorial. But with paths, you can set up, well, predefined paths, and then you can have objects access those and go on those paths. Scripts, these are useful. These are extra bits of code that are separate from anything else, and you can use them anywhere. Shaders, well, these are obviously very important for big games, and we probably won't really get into these for a long time. But obviously they can make new effects, they can like change the color scheme, they can do all kinds of things. Fonts, these are going to be very important for a text-based game, obviously. Fonts are, well, just fonts. We'll need to import new and interesting and fun fonts, because like the basic fonts really aren't that great. Then timelines. Timelines are just a sort of like system for executing code. We're not really gonna get into these too much either, but they can be used. The paths and the timelines are very GameMaker specific. So, I mean, outside of GameMaker, you're not really gonna see these two things that much. Then there are objects. This is where almost all your time will be spent when you're making a game. Objects are, for the most part, where the code goes. Anytime there's code, it's with the object. Now, yes, there are the scripts, but the objects are accessing the scripts. You have an object for your characters, you have objects for basically everything. So, for example, a Goomba in Mario is an object. It would be an object in GameMaker. So is Mario. So is the coin block. So is everything, basically. And then you can also have an object, a controller object, which controls the game. You don't see it. It's not an actual physical thing in a level, but it's still there, and it is controlling the game. Next we have the rooms. The rooms are, well, you can think of them like levels. I'll load it up right now. You automatically start out with a room, and this is where you can put a level in. But the way that programming works, you might want to use your rooms differently than have every level be one room. You might want to put multiple rooms or levels together, or you might want to have levels split up into separate parts, and then you can have, so for example, you could have some sort of system where you're fading, like you're going into a door and you're fading from one room to another, so it looks like you're going inside the building. And we'll get more in depth with rooms later. So let's go back to the workspace. When we clicked on it, it automatically switched us over to a view of the room. Next we have the notes. Now these notes are just notes. They're not code, and then you can just write whatever you want. Literally. Okay. And then there's included files. These can be, well, obviously separate files that you use from outside. And then there's extensions. Now these are a bit more complicated. We can get more into them later, but we won't really need to know them right now. And then there's options and configurations. These are also GameMaker specific. So for example, like Windows, we can change the version, we can change the name, we can deal with all this stuff. This is more of the stuff you deal with when your game is ready and you want to send it out to the world. So, let's use this note. And I would like it if you would go along with this tutorial. I mean, I will have all this code uploaded to GameJolt so you can download this file, but typing the code yourself, I mean, even if this really isn't code, what we're doing right now, but still, as we go on, it's really useful to type the things yourself, because even if you make a mistake, you can go back and try to fix your mistake, and as you're trying to figure things out, you'll understand your own code better. And then, as we get farther on, I'll encourage you to do your own thing, to branch off in your own direction, and make the game how you want. In fact, even when we download fonts, I might have you guys download a different font. So, but anyways, back on topic. The notes. So, we want to know what we're doing with this game. We already know that it's text-based, because that's a very easy place to start. So, a text-based game. What does that mean? Well, obviously, text will appear on the screen, so we know that much. What do we want to have in our game? I mean, these are good things to figure out before you get started. We want to have we want to have colored fonts. We want to have multiple fonts. What else do we want? Well, it's kind of boring if you just display a font, or if you just display some words and then have those go away and have the next words come up, or something like that. We want a cool system of one character at a time. In case you're not sure what I mean by character, I'm saying like one letter at a time. So like each of the letters appear one at a time. Because like if you see video games, a lot of them do that, where well, one character appears at a time on the screen. So we're definitely gonna want that. Maybe we're gonna want player has choices. So like the player can answer yes or no to questions. And honestly, this kind of makes things a lot more complicated for us. But this is still a very basic game and should not be super hard to implement. Maybe we want some sort of background scene or characters. And finally, we want this to come out on Windows. So I think this is a good list of things we need. So we have our notes in place. What do we do now? Well, we don't have anything right now. I mean, we have notes. We have our basic notes, and we have room 0. One thing that we should really do is we should rename our room, because there are naming standards that we have that we really need to get used to. So for example, for rooms, we do rm underscore, and then we do whatever we need the room to be called. I'll just call this main level. And also, as you can see here, I didn't put a space. I capitalized the L. We also do this a lot when we're naming files, because putting a space there doesn't always work. So we have our room. It's RM main level. And what do we need to do now? Well, the best thing you can probably do is go down to the corner here, and right now the resolution is 1024 by 768. Let's play this. As you can see, it's kind of just a box right now. So my monitor is 16 by 9. I'd assume your guys's are. So you can have the resolution be whatever you want. I'm gonna have it be 1280 by 7. Well, I'll have it be 1280 by 720 because, well, that's a very standard resolution to have. So now if I press play, yeah, so it's a nice standard resolution. It's not the full size of my computer or my monitor, but I don't want it to be for now. I mean, you can have this be something different, you can have it be whatever you want, but I'd recommend a standard sort of view, because when people are playing our game, we'll want them to have a good resolution to play it with, obviously. And 16 by 9 is the sort of standard. So, we have all that now. What should we do? Well, we've done a little bit of stuff, so we should probably save the project. Simply pressing on this should save it. Okay. So we have the main level, and we have everything else. We probably want some fonts. So you can load up the internet, and you can start searching for some fonts. I'll just search fonts, and I'll search free to use. The reason I want to use free to use is because some people require that you pay them money if you're making money off of their font. What you can look for is you can go to this website, and you can look right here, and if it says this font is free for commercial use, that means you can use it without having to pay the person who made the font. So let's go along, let's see if we can find something nice. I mean, I'm looking for a kind of, I want something maybe pixelated, because that's a standard sort of like indie game look. So let me see here. I mean, you can download whatever font you want, but I'm just gonna go with a sort of standard. Okay, here we go. So I just found this pixel font. It's slightly more pixelated than the others. So all I need to do is press download. And then when I open this up, I'll get a zip. Okay, so there's some sort of little readme. Okay. I mean, it's pretty important to actually read through this, just so you make sure that you're able to use it. So, it'll come in a zip likely, so you'll need to open it up, and I'll just send this over to my documents or it won't let me. And then, once you have it out, you can left click and press install, because then your computer will have the actual font on it. This is useful because then GameMaker can access it too. So, we're going to want to create a font in GameMaker once you have the font downloaded. Now, the naming convention is FNT underscore and then whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to call this main for now because this is going to be our main font. And so the font online that I downloaded, I already forgot what it was called. That is one weird name. Let's see, you should be able to find the font here. Yeah, this is the font. So, yeah, you can download the same font or something different. And, alright. So, we're probably going to want to have the size a little bit bigger, because our game is text-based, and the text is the focus of the game. So, making it be a fairly large font is probably useful. Okay. So, we have it size 29. And now whenever we use this font, it's going to be size 29. Okay, now that we have the font in place and we have the room ready, all we need to do is add a way for us to display some text on the screen. Add some code finally. So, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create an object. Remember, an object is where everything is stored. And so we use the obj underscore and then the name of it, but actually we also have another naming standard, or at least I use this naming standard. I do cont underscore, and this means controller, because an object to me is something that you can actually see in the room and you can actually interact with. A controller, well, controls the game in some way. So we're going to want to name this controller text, because this is not an object you're going to see. It's just going to display the text. It might be kind of confusing, but the object itself is not displayed. We're going to set up code so it displays the main font that we have right here. Okay, do you got that? So yeah. Here are all the events we have. So, in the events is where we put the actual code. We have a lot of different events here, as you can see. We have the create event, the destroy, the clean up, the step, the alarm, draw, all of these events. Now, for time's sake, we're just gonna start with the create event. The create event is, well, code that happens right when the object is created, because there's some code, because there's also the step event. The step event is like the bulk of your code, your main code. That's where the code will run every single frame. So every single step, as they put it, the code will execute. And yeah, that's where you have just your normal sort of code for like movement, your players, depending on what type of game you have, like your bullet firing. But the create event only happens once. This is where we kind of set things up for the game. Now, what we're going to do here is going to be a little bit confusing. Or actually, first, we need to talk about these. Now, what are these green things here? You might be wondering. So, these are comments. They're called comments, and they're not actual code. It's also called pseudocode. This is where you can write stuff. It's the same thing as the notes, except in the actual code. So, I mean, before any of your code, you can write a comment just by putting 2 slashes in. Now, this is useful because, well, I mean, code isn't always easy to understand just by looking at it, so you can have a comment before it or after it, describing what it does exactly. And then, at the top line, we have 3 here, and then we have @description. So, we can put a description right here. So, the create event. Initializing DS map. I'm putting that there. Now, you're going to find out in a second what the DS map means, but as you can see, I can easily see right here. I don't even have to open this up to know what it's going to do. It's going to initialize the DS map. So first of all, we need to figure out what a DS map is. It's something I'm introducing to you. So we can press on this help button right here. This can lead us to the manual. In the manual, we have all kinds of information. So we can go to search. Instead of just looking through the basic stuff, we can just go straight to search, and let's search DS map. See what comes up. Okay, so these are actual specific code commands, specific functions. We just want to know what DS maps are in general. So, a DS map is a data structure that stores data in linked pairs consisting of a key and a corresponding value. Now, I want to ask you guys to go over this and read this yourself. So you can pause this here, explore a little, and find out some new cool things. But I'll explain it once you get back. Okay, so what really are DS maps? Well, it's a way to store data. I mean, okay, so there are plenty of different ways to store data. Here, let's go into our notes and I can go over it. DS maps. So what really are they? Well, first of all, the DS stands for data structure. It's a type of way to store information. Now, in programming, there are plenty of different ways to store information, but DS maps is one of the most useful. So, what do you have? So how do you store information in it? Well, first of all, you have a key. A key can be something like a number, a letter, or just really anything. And with the key, you input a key, and then as an output, you get a value. So the value is the output, and the output can be anything. It can be like just some information, some numbers, or whatever. Now, why would we want to use a DS map? Well, so we're going to be drawing text. We're going to be creating text in our room. And we want to store that text that we're creating because we're going to be saying lots of different things. We're going to be saying stuff like, welcome to the game. And we're going to be, for example, I don't know, you might be talking to someone in our game. We haven't really fleshed out what exactly we want the game to be about. But we might want some description. And we're going to want lots of different things. And we want to store it somewhere. So, we're going to use a DS map. And, yes, here are all the functions that we can use with the DS map. So let's get right into creating a DS map. As we are in the create event, we're going to create a DS map. So that might be easy to understand. Now to create one, it's pretty simple. DS map create. Now we use underscores instead of spaces because it's one function and there needs to be no spaces. That happens a lot in programming, as we can see right here. You don't generally want spaces when you're programming stuff, when you're programming one thing. And we have parentheses here, but they're just closed. There's nothing inside of them. But that's because every function will have parentheses, but not every function will need anything inside of the parentheses. You do put things in here for some functions. For example, you can just you can input information into the function. Like for example, if you had a function called go to, or even as some of them are appearing down here, room go to. We're going to be using this eventually. So like in your code you might want to say, okay, let's go to the main level. And that's really all you have to do. You just input what you need to input. So we have the dsmap create. We're creating this data structure. And what do we want to do? Well, in our game we're going to be having some text, and we want to say, what do we want to say? We want to say welcome to the game. We want to say that for now. When we press play, we want it to say that. So how do we do that? Well, we want to store this information inside the dsmap. Well, how do we do that? Well, we can use dsmap add. And so as you can see down here, here are the parameters we need to put in. And we need an ID. What's the ID? Well, the ID is the specific dsmap that we're accessing. You could have multiple dsmaps inside your game. So we need to store this dsmap inside of something. So let's just create text map. Now we can just do this. This is a variable, and we're storing dsmap create inside this variable. So this variable will know that it's this dsmap. So for the ID, we can just put text map. That's the specific map that we're using. If this doesn't make sense for now, that'll be fine. You can ask in the comments, or you can ask for explanation at my email, etreadall@gmail.com. So yeah, and in the description you'll find all my information if you need help. And so a key, like I said before, we need a key to access the value. So the key is what we need to put in to get the text. So for now we can just use 0 as the key. And so the value, we want it to say welcome to the game. Now I put this in quotation marks and it made it yellow. The quotation marks means that it is a string. Now what's a string? Well, a string is like a collection of characters or letters that you're storing together, and you need to tell the computer that you're not writing code, because, well, I could have a string that says dsmap add, but it'll know that it's a string because it's in quotation marks, and it won't treat it as if it's code. So we have the create event all done. We've created our dsmap. We're also going to need to do something else. So here's a cleanup event. The cleanup event happens if the game ends or anything of that sort happens. So we created a dsmap, right? But here's the problem. When we exit out of the game, we're not destroying the dsmap. We're just letting it continue to exist, which is not a good thing. We need to destroy it. So we can just simply use dsmap destroy. And we need the ID again. So what's the ID? Well, it's just text map. So that's all done. What next? What did we want to do again? Yeah, we wanted to draw the code, or we wanted to draw the text. So we have a draw event. Now we have some before we simply draw the text, there's some things we need to set up, and they're not immediately apparent. Yes, we only have one font, but we still need to access the font. So in order to access it, we do draw set font, font main. And that'll set it up so we're drawing with that font. And also, we want to have a specific color. We want to draw the font in a specific color. So for now we can do C white. The C in front of it is built into GameMaker and it can decide a color. So you'll put C underscore black, C underscore gray, C underscore blue, whatever color you want. Although you can't do every color. And so we're going to want to align our text. And H-align is horizontal alignment for our text. We want our text to be centered towards like the middle of the screen, for now at least. So to do this, we'll do FA underscore center. Now we could also just do FA underscore left or FA underscore right, but basically it sets the text up. And then we'll just do the same thing for this. And now we should be ready to actually draw the text. Now, here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna use draw text. Pretty easy, right? But it needs to be drawn somewhere. Where do we want to draw it? Well, what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to draw it precisely where controller text is. So let's open up the room. Now right now, so here's our instances. We don't have any instances. Well, that's a problem because we need controller text inside the level in order to see it. So what we simply need to do is we need to put it in here. Now you can see there's a question mark here. That just means it's not gonna show up in the level. If I hit play, if I don't get any errors, okay, I got an error, but it'll just show up as nothing. I can just comment this out, and then once I play, as you can see, there's nothing. It doesn't show up. So, coming back in here, where is it? We have a coordinate grid, as you can see. You can see these numbers are moving. So, as I move around, these are the X and Y values. If you can think back to some sort of math class in school, it can help you out a lot in terms of like using calculations and X and Y variables. So yeah. So we have that there. And we need to draw the text somewhere. Where do we want to draw it? We want to draw it where we placed controller text. So all we need to do is X and Y, because the X is the X coordinate for controller text and the Y is the Y coordinate for controller text. And then it's asking for the string. Well, what's the string again? It's welcome to the game. And we added it to the DS map, text map, at the key of 0. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to find the value, right? And yeah, find value. It's all pretty simple. And then we need the ID. Again, that's just text map. That's the specific one we're accessing. And then for a key, well, what's the key again? Just 0. Okay. So there we go. I'm gonna hit save now, and let's see if it works. Boom! Look at that. Welcome to the game. Now I don't know why that's there on the G, but other than that, it's working perfectly right now. You just made your first lines of code, and you just started your first project. It might seem kind of difficult to understand exactly what we're doing here, especially here. Some of these programming things you're just going to have to get used to over time. I mean, you might have a hard time navigating or anything, but the more episodes of this you watch, the more you will learn, and the more you'll be able to understand. So, just leave a comment if you have any issues and anything you need to know, and then you can look in the description for the GameJolt link, which will lead you straight to where you can download this file. But I highly, highly recommend you're writing the code yourself. Even if it gets annoying and then you find out you're screwing up, you can always just back up on the video and rewatch a part. I tried to make the font for this pretty large so you guys can see my code and everything I'm doing. But if there's any comments, any concerns, anything, you can just ask. So, thank you for watching episode 1.